Okay, so this Parsha is just crammed full of just amazing events, occurrences, word plays, prophetic happenings. The land. There's all kind there's all right. There's a connection to the people, the scriptures, and the land of Israel throughout this Parsha. There's archetypes. There's this is my problem. So it is like 1:45 right now, and we only have so much time. So, and we can always, we'll have the oneg afterwards. We can continue the discussion in there. I know we always start at the beginning, and so I think what we're going to do, chapter 12, right? We have where we read from the Torah scroll, and where God calls Avram, and he goes and he tells him that he's going to give him this land, and then there was a famine. They go to Egypt. He comes up from Egypt. You always go down to Egypt. You always come up to Jerusalem, right? You always come up to Jerusalem and to the land. And so they did that. He's obviously became wealthy. He and Lot could not stay together. So he says to Lot, who was his younger, his inferior, and he says, I'm going to defer to you. You pick what you want. He, of course, picked the good land, and God still blessed Avram and multiplied him, and Lot gets into some trouble. Nobody can save him, apparently. None of these kings and these supposedly great men. And then Avram says, you know what? Me and my boys are going to take care of business. And they go and rescue him and do what these other the word that comes to mind is Gentile sinners. What these other guys can't do, right? Who aren't calling on the name of the Lord, who right, are okay? And the Lord is with Avram, and he rescues them. And we're going to pick it up right there, and that's going to lead us into chapter 15. And so we have they've been taken captive. These kings can't do anything about it. And in verse 14, so this is chapter 14 of Genesis, verse 14. When Avram heard that his nephew had been taken captive, he led out his trained men who'd been born in his house, 318 of them, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, he and his servants divided his forces against them. Then he attacked and pursued them all the way to Hovah, north of Damascus. He recovered all of the goods, brought back his nephew Lot with his goods, together with the women and the other people. After his return from slaughtering Kedorlaomer, my tongue is not cooperating. Kedorlaomer, and the kings with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the Sheva Valley, as also known as the King's Valley. Melchizedek, the king of Shalem, brought out bread and wine. He was Kohen, priest of El Elyon, God Most High. So he blessed him with these words: Blessed be Avram by El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth. And blessed be El Elyon, who handed your enemies over to you. Avram gave him 1/10 of everything. The king of Sodom said to Avram, give me the people, or give me the souls, and keep the goods for yourself. Almost sounds like a bribe. We're just going to leave that for now, but it sounds like kind of like a bribe. But Avram answered the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand in an oath to Adonai El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a thread or a sandal thong or anything that is yours, so that you won't be able to say, I have made Avram rich. I will only take what my troops have eaten and the share of the spoil belonging to the men who came with me. And Ner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them have their share. Okay, so we're going to start there. We're going to go. We'll see where we end up. So, given what we've just read, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, points that you would like to raise? I'm giving other people the first crack. I'm good. No. Okay, all right, right back here. Raise your hand again. Okay, run on back.
Okay, I understand that Melchizedek is like a foreshadowing of Messiah, because we have that in the New Testament that refers back to him. But I am always perplexed, like, where in the world did this guy come from? How did he know El Elyon? And how is it that he's a priest, because he's not like a Levite? Like, is there any backstory to this or conjecture? Like, wow, where did he come from?
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of both. Like, conjecture a lot. Cheryl, did you want to say something about that? Okay.
We have this incredible timeline, and it shows how long, Adam and Eve lived and everything like that. And we see that after the flood, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah himself, they each divided and conquered different areas. But Shem had lived all the way through Abraham. So when you think of somebody living through that, can you imagine waking up and you're the only family on earth? And Elohim, your father, has served the Lord and obeyed him and found favor in his sight. We believe that the Melchizedek, or the king of Salem, was none other than Shem himself. And he carried on and carried the word of the Lord through all that time. And anyway, that's thought to chew on.
So there are actually. I wasn't sure if this would come up, and so now it has. We're going to talk about it, I suppose. So there is some discussion about the ages of those genealogies, because the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were in the 70 Septuagint, actually puts 100 with each of those years. And so the idea is that it's through one way or another that those hundreds were dropped off in order to allow the timeline to be compressed, whether it was intentional or accidental. There was this discrepancy between the oldest manuscripts that we have and the newer Masoretic text, which pretty much all of the English translations are based off of, right? Art Scroll Tanakh, the English Standard Version, like pretty much across the board. So there is some conjecture that Shem was Melchizedek. And then there's also on the other side as well, we have all these extra hundreds of years that would elongate that timeline and make that impossible. This is what it says in Hebrews chapter 7. It says, "For this Melchizedek, the king of Shalem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham as he was returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham apportioned a tenth of all, was first of all, by the translation of his name, king of righteousness, and then also king of Shalem, which is king of peace, without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God. He remains a priest perpetually." So I I read that very fast. Okay.
You could try slowing it down.
Sorry. I put like coffee in our smoothie this morning, and I think I'm just like I'm a little bit like I might have overdone it. So, okay. So we're talking about Melchizedek. So this is Hebrews 7:3. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, he remains a priest perpetually. And so then he talks about how he was actually greater than Avraham because Avraham paid to him the spoils, right? The choicest of things. And it says, and those indeed are the sons of Levi who received the priest's office have commandment in the law to collect the tenth from the people that is from their brethren, although these are descended from Avraham. But the one whose genealogy is not traced from them collected a tenth from Avraham and blessed the one who had the promises, right? So Melchizedek blessed Avraham, and we know that the greater blesses the lesser. And so, okay, so the other question, which wasn't spoken yet, is Melchizedek a pre-incarnate Messiah? Is he Yeshua in the flesh? Mm-hmm. The answer is no. He's a type for Messiah, and it talks in Hebrews that he's as the Son of God, right, which is a Messianic reference, but he doesn't say that he is the Son of God. There's a very big difference between those things. And so, for it is evident that our Lord was descended from Judah, a tribe with reference to which Moses spoke nothing concerning the priest. And this is clear still. If another priest arises according to the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become such not on the basis of a law of physical requirement, right, the Torah, but according to the power of an indestructible life, for it is attested to him, you are a priest forever, not according to the order of Levi, right, but according to the order of Melchizedek. Right. So Melchizedek is a lot of things, but one of the things that he is a type, a foreshadow of Messiah, and showing that Messiah is greater than Avraham even. And so, okay. Is that clear? Is that good? Is that... Isabel, do you have something to say?
Okay.
Go ahead.
First off, this is a title. This is not a personal name.
Right.
When we get on later to Abimelech, and then Abimelech's grandson, it'll still be Abimelech because it means father king. And this is a title, not a personal name. There are no Jews yet. Abraham will be the first Jew. And so this Kohen is not of the tribe of Levi. There is no tribe of Levi yet. He is simply a priest. He could be a priest of Baal. You know, the word Kohen is used in the story of Jezebel for the priest of Baal. We only have one word in Hebrew for priest. So what I wanted to notice is the word El Elyon is used in all the Middle East cultures. It is not specific to Israel at all. And when we see Abraham reply, he says, hang on, I'm looking for it. He corrects Melchizedek, and he says, Adonai El Elyon. He adds the personal name of the God of Israel. He corrects this priest of El Elyon.
Or clarifies.
And says, by the way, the El Elyon I'm serving is Adonai. And because he also brought 300 and so souls, from Haran, he was already, and I really accept the rabbinical understanding of this, that he was proselytizing even while he was still in Syria. He was bringing souls to the one true God. And I think he is correcting this priest and saying, by the way, the one you speak of is Adonai. Mm-hmm. So I just want to correct, the name is a title, not a personal name. There are no Levites, and El Elyon is a common term in the Middle East at that time.
Yeah, there's no Levites at that point.
Correct.
Right.
There are no Levites.
Right. other thoughts before we? All right, Margie.
I think what I'm taking away here is there is one true God. There are a lot of gods that are being followed, little g's.
Yeah, supposed.
There is one true God, the maker of heaven and earth, and he alone is the one that can direct our hearts, that speaks to us, that calls us and tells us, like Abraham, do these things. Noah, do these crazy things. No one is going to think you're the smartest man on earth until I have fulfilled my promise. And I think all of us need to make that commitment in our hearts to raise our hand in an oath and say, I worship Adonai Elion, the one true God, the maker of heaven and earth.
Yeah. It says, what did Yeshua say? Wisdom is proven by her children, right? That you seem crazy at first until the results come in.
This just made me think of that book that you have, Eternity on
Eternity
Their
in Their
Hearts or something. Yeah. About how God has revealed himself to different cultures around the world throughout history. And I just think here you have a king who we don't know what he knew of the creator God at this point. Like, we really, it could have been, like, there's so many different options of who this guy could have been and what his background could have been, because it gives so little information. But what we do know is that he recognized some kind of a calling on Avram. He had some kind of an understanding of the true God in order to recognize that Avram had this blessing and calling on his life. And I just think it's a beautiful picture of how God reaches out to us when we are truly seeking him. And he wants to make himself known to us. He's not trying to be a secret. We don't have to search and search and search for the secret knowledge of God, because he wants to make himself known to us. And I thought that's what stuck out to me when we were talking about Melchizedek and who he may have been.
That's good. So one of the things I wanted to make mention of was that it seems like the king of Sodom is coming and saying, give me the people, right? Literally, give me the souls, but keep all the money for yourself, right? Keep the riches, keep the spoils, keep like all these things, like in our vernacular, keep the cash, right? And in one of the commentaries that I was reading, they likened this to the anti-Messiah, right? Who comes and gives an offer of, really, it's kind of almost like an offer of corruption, right? That's, well, I'll take these, I'll make you rich if you just do this, right? It kind of reminds me of when Yeshua was led into the wilderness to be tempted by Hasatan, right? And he's saying, just bow down and worship me. Like, all the kingdoms of the earth are mine. Just bow down and worship me, and I'll give them to you. It's very, I just kind of hear echoes of this in that. And the Messiah says, no, right? You're to worship the one true God and him alone, right? And so this is what Avram tells him, right? I'm not taking anything of yours, right? Nothing from you is going, there's no way, nothing from you is going to find its way in me, right? You have no place in me, and you will not take any credit or have anything to boast of what God has done in me and what God is doing. So I love it, and so it's not until after this. Now it's chapter 15 says sometime later. It's not like the next day, but God comes to Avram after this in a vision. So this is what it says, Genesis 15:1. Sometime later, the word of Adonai came to Avram in a vision. Don't be afraid, Avram. I am your protector. Your reward will be very great. Why does he say not to be afraid? Well, because the presence of Adonai is frightening, right? At Sinai, we have the children of Israel who are incredibly afraid. And we have here, as we continue to read, deep fear does fall on Avram. Even though God says, don't be afraid, he's still, there's weight, right, to God's glory. So he says, do not be afraid, Avram. I am your protector. Your reward will be very great, right? This is connected. It's right directly after. This is connected to what happened with Kedorlaomer and all of these kings and the rescue. It's not the next day, but God is connecting these two with this proximity. And so he says, I am your protector. Your reward will be very great, right? The king of Sodom was seeking to entice you, and you didn't fall for it. So I will be your protector. I am your protector. Your reward will be very great. Avram replied, Adonai, God. What will your gifts to me be if I continue childless? And Eliezer of Damascus inherits my possessions. You haven't given me a child, Avram continued, so someone born in my house will be my heir. But the word of Adonai came to him, this man will not be your heir. No, your heir will be a child from your own body. Then he brought him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars if you can count them. Your descendants will be that many. He believed in Adonai, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Right? He believed Adonai. He didn't doubt. He didn't say, oh, but I'm 100 years old, and I don't know how that's going to happen, and oh, I mean, that would be great, but I don't know, God, like, what? Okay. Awesome, thank you. Right? God is just looking for people to believe in him, to have faith, to take him at his word. Right? In Isaiah it says the eyes of the Lord are to and fro throughout the earth to seek a heart that is completely his so that he can show himself strong. Right? He found Avram. Amen. Then he said to him, I am Adonai who brought you out of Ur Kasdim to give you this land as your possession. Avram replied, Adonai, God, how am I to know that I will possess it? He answered him, bring me a 3-year-old cow, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a dove, and a young pigeon. He brought him all of these, cut the animals into, and placed these pieces opposite each other, but he didn't cut the birds in half. The birds of prey swooped down on the carcasses, but Avram drove them away. As the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell on Avram. Horror and great darkness came over him. Adonai said to Avram, know this for certain, your descendants will be foreigners in a land that is not theirs. They will be slaves and held in oppression there 400 years. But I will also judge that nation, the one that makes them slaves. Afterwards, when they leave with many possessions, afterwards they will leave with many possessions. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Only in the 4th generation will your descendants come back here, because only then will the Amori be ripe for punishment. Right? The Amorites. After the sun had set and there was thick darkness, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared, which passed between these animal parts. That day Adonai made a covenant with Avram. I have given this land to your descendants, from the Valley of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, the territory of the Keni, the Kenizi, the Kadmoni, the Hittites, the Perizi, and the Rephaim, the Amori, the Canaim, the Girgashi, and the Yevusi. Okay? I'm giving you all of this from here to here. Bam. It's yours. So there we have the land, right? We have obviously the people of Israel. God promises more than the stars of heaven. The land he promises. He's giving him his word. We have the scriptures. We have the people. We have the land of Israel right here. All right. Thoughts, questions, points to be raised. Ralph.
Could I go back to
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is 12 is the covenant. that God gives to Avram and the founding of the Jewish people.
Yes.
What concerns me is that the covenant is all couched in the future. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I will bless those who bless you, but I will curse anyone who curses you, etc. It isn't happening at that moment, but it's something that he says lies in the future. And I suggest that he's also predicting eternity, well, I shouldn't say eternity, but our life on earth to be fraught with anti-Semitism when he already tells you that you will be cursed. You will be cursed. So when I bless you, when I give you this incredible inheritance, it's going to come with a lot of tragedy. And that's one of the through lines, of course, that you read as you go through that. So I just wonder, am I misreading the notion that this is all in the future and it all comes with that price of anti-Semitism forever? It's the oldest of all prejudices.
Right. Well, yeah, because it's. I think it's one of the only prejudices that's directly against God. Right. And there's always that contingent that hates God. The fact that the Jews exist is a testament, is a testimony directly that despite what science and whatever the wisdom of the day is, that God exists and that He has His hand in human affairs, and that He. And anyway, there's many reasons, I suppose, for anti-Semitism. I think it comes down to hatred of God. But I think that Avram, we say in Hebrews 11, right? He didn't receive the promise, but he was faithful still. And Yeshua said, Avram rejoiced to see my day. And he was glad. And so God gave Avram a prophetic insight into the future of his people. And I would say that, he says, I will make you great, right? And I will make, was this 15 or 17? He says, I'll make nations of you, right? 17. He changes his name, 17:5. You'll no longer be called Avram, exalted father, but your name will be Avraham, father of many, because I have made you the father of many nations. I will cause you to be very fruitful, and I will make nations of you. Kings will descend from you. So there are two things that are going on here. One is the physical promise of progeny, of just as numerous as the stars of the sky. And in the years later, right, from chapter 12 in what we see in chapter 17, God still says, I will make nations of you, but he says, I have already made you the father of many nations. And so in chapter 12, I'm trying to find, there we go, okay. So in chapter 12, I believe Avram became the father of the many nations, right? He actually became the father of faith for all those who call on the name of the Lord. That is through that promise and that covenant that God made that really kind of not just the people of Israel, but Avram himself became the doorway of faith for the whole world to come to know Adonai. And so he became the father of many nations at that point. And then God says, I will also make you the father of nations. And then we have in chapter 21, Yitzhak is born, and we see, okay, this is that seed continuing. I don't know if I'm really answering your question very well.
You are answering well, but I also am still pointing to the fact that God here is saying to Abraham, as he's about to found a nation that still exists tells us that concomitant with this, and perhaps always, you're going to be cursed.
Yeah.
I will try to protect you, but live with that notion that you're going to be cursed. And I see the futility of trying to wash away anti-Semitism all my life, and everyone else probably sees it too. And I think that's a covenant that he made with us, and as I said, it seems to have a real lasting price.
Right. Well, we see that with Abraham's life. We see that with Isaac when he comes back into the land and he has strife with yes, thank you, Abimelech, the second one, and they're having contention over the wells and all this, right? Like, why did they care? Like, Avram clearly dug these. Like, everybody knew this, and yet I think it does come back to I think you make a very good point, right? That God is saying, like, there will be those who bless you, there will be those who curse you, and I will ultimately I will return it back on their heads, whether that be the blessing or the curse. And we see throughout history, throughout Scripture, that it is the Lord that fights for Israel. And it's in Deuteronomy, he talks about, like, one will put 1,000 to flight, and two will send 10,000, and like how later on he says when they come against when they rebel against me, they'll come to when I leave them alone. When I withdraw myself, they'll come to themselves and think, how else could we have sent 1,000? One sent 1,000 to flight, and two sent 10,000, except the Lord, their rock had sold them into these hands, right? That instead of sending the enemy to flight, now Israel's being sent to flight. So I do think that I don't know that it's a promise of blessing and curse, in that I promise to bless you and I promise to curse you, or that there will be blessing and there will be cursing from other people. I think it's maybe, this is just my opinion, I think it's maybe just a statement of fact that this is going to happen, but don't worry, though I will show the other people, just as I show myself to Israel, right? When Israel, this is a little anachronistic, but God is outside of time, right? But just as I show myself strong to Israel, when Israel is faithful to me, and then when Israel turns my back, well, then I will withdraw. It's almost like this same thing, but God uses Avram and his descendants as the measuring stick for the other nations, right? How you treat Israel, how you treat my people. I mean, that could go good for you, or it could go really bad. I agree. I think we still have to fight anti-Semitism, but I don't see a way to escape it, just because it's that constant reminder that people can say whatever they want, but the Lord exists and He made heaven and earth, and here's proof right now today. We have okay.
Well, I'm just my thought on that is, like, Hashem knows. He gave us free will from the very beginning, and He knows man will make that choice. And, like, I read something this week that I really liked about that free will. Is like everything is in the hands of heaven except the fear of Hashem. And it's like the choice itself is in the hands of man. So there are. I mean, we see people choosing out of their arrogance and out of lack of fear of Hashem. They're going to choose to hate everything about Him, which is, of course, His chosen people and His land, His holy land. And I think that's what He means by that, like people that He will curse those who curse you, because He knows that people are going to choose to do that.
Okay, we have patience, waits over here.
I'm just trying to be polite. I can be loud.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
All right, go ahead and run on.
So, Shalom, I'm Brendan.
If you don't, hold on, guys, hold on, everybody, go.
Okay.
If he doesn't want to speak on the mic, it's okay.
No. I can speak on the mic. I don't care. I'm just trying to. So hi, Shalom. I'm Brendan. I'm new. I'm gonna show some chutzpah and talk on my first day here. So I had some thoughts to the different, to the first person portion that we looked at, and then also to the gentleman over there, and I'm sorry, the lady up here who made the comment about there's no Levites yet. There's no Levites yet in this passage. There's no Jews yet in this passage. The covenant hasn't even happened yet in this passage. The sacrifice of Isaac hasn't happened. And I was struck by, there's a book, I recommended it to Marnie, by Thomas Cahill called The Gift of the Jews. And he talks about the really radical change that's happening with Abraham and the whole view that humanity has of what it means to live and what it means to be human. There's this, before the advent of Judaism and monotheism as we know it, we don't have the concept of history that we have today. We have this idea of history as change. Like, okay, the next generation, hopefully for our kids, is going to be better than this one, and we hope that the generation after that will be even better. But this is a very modern concept, and it's a very Jewish concept, this idea that time has a beginning and it has a progression. It's going somewhere. God has a destination for us. We don't know what that is, but we're going somewhere, and we're trying to have faith on that journey. But pre this, that wasn't the idea people had. You were born because the gods needed somebody to offer sacrifices to them, and then you would die, and who cares? Everything's going to be the same, or if anything, it's going to get worse. And so this idea of like also this idea of a personal God, a personal revelation, not a God who's like, for you, I have a special mission for you, and you're going to leave the city of Ur, which basically means leave civilization. Like, it's not like you're going out, like I live in Cuna, like, oh, you're leaving Boise and you're going to go to Cuna. No. This is like you're leaving civilization as a whole and you're going out to the desert, and who knows what's going to happen to you. And you're going to have these crazy adventures and all this stuff is going to happen, but you just have to trust me that I'm sending you somewhere good. And that's a crazy idea. And Abraham is trying to follow that. And as he's doing that, eventually we end up at the point of the covenant, but we're not even there yet. So I think a lot of this stuff like, okay, well, he's sort of demonstrating his willingness to go on this journey, which is huge. I mean, who knows how many people before that Hashem said, hey, listen, I've got a mission for you. And they went, no, I've got stuff to do. Like, that's too scary and I don't want to do it. And I think that speaks also to the point about the gentleman over here who said about prejudice, Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, whatever you want to call it. You know, if you go out in the world and you're like, I have a moral mission and I'm going to try to be a better person, and I'm going to, the line, right, that the beginning, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. I struggled with that a lot because, like, how could that be right? I mean, God is love. How could that be right? It's like, well, you have to be more afraid of judgment because you have to be afraid of what your actions mean than you are of the loss of, you know, you're tempted to do something expedient. And the idea that you're being held to account is a scary idea, and people don't like hearing that idea. So if you're going to be like, no, I'm held to moral account, and you're held to moral account, and we're all held to moral account, people are not going to like to hear that message, and they're going to keep finding ways to be upset about that. It's a tough message.
Well,
So.
that's why they hate, because there's a reminder.
Yeah.
Right? Because they want to say, I'm my own person. It's all like whatever. We've had, you know, conversations before about, like, you know, free love of the 70s and whatever like that. Like it really isn't. Right? There's all these things that we want as humanity. We want to believe these things, and yet there's that constant reminder, as you said, that Judgment Day is coming. Right? That we're going to be held accountable for the things that we did, for the things that we said. And that's great.
When Ralph was saying that, Ralph, I struggle with the same thing. Like, why? Why do people hate the Jews so much? But I think of it kind of like the children of a king. That there are those in the kingdom who resent the child of the king, and they're going to live their lives in defiance because somehow they're treated better than we are. But there's those others that go, no, I'm going to become their friend. I want to know, how do I please the king and find his favor? Ralph is my age. I'm going to go play with Ralph and see why does God favor him? What does it mean to please the king? And I think that is the inner voice of God in us that directs us to want to know the king. Why it's a curse, Ralph, I think that I can't begin to understand it, but when you were saying it, it was kind of like, well, I know that there are people who resent the king in the queen in her position in England, or whatever the rule that they have over the land. This is obviously in a heavenly sense, but that heritage is passed down similarly, and it is handed down from the fathers to the children to carry the mantle. And I can't begin to say I understand it, but there is that inner voice that
There's
lots of you.
Yeah, so, okay, Cheryl, Miguel, and then we'll do Julie. So Cheryl, yeah, there we go. So, but I think also that, for your analogy, like the children of the king are his emissaries, right? And it's like the reminder of the king and his rule. And it's like there are those who will love. It's a heart issue, right? Do you love the Lord? Do you love Adonai? Do you then if you have a predisposition towards that, if you've subjected yourself, then you're going to love the emissary. Otherwise, you're going to reject him, right? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Sarai asked Abraham to go into her servant. I don't think it was his idea, but he said, no problem. Hagar. And through Hagar, Ishmaelite had 12 brothers also. And so who are the Ishmaelites of today? The ones who are saying that the antagonizers of Israel that are saying, no, Abraham was our father, and he was, and this is our land. And so you've got that going on, and that's a family kind of a thing. But yeah, I just think it's also Hasatan. He hates God, and he hates the apple of God's eye.
All right, Miguel. Oh, turn right around. There we go. Good job.
Thank you. Good morning, Mishpocha.
Shabbat.
I missed you last week, by the way, but I follow you online. I'm going to take off a little different direction from what has been said, which is very interesting. But one of the things that I thought about when you were reading the message today, when you delivering the message, is that it's that the covenant is based on faith. Abraham's calling and Abraham's response to God is faith, and righteousness is based on faith. So the faith is counted to Abraham as righteousness, and to believers today, the same manner, right? We're righteous in God because of faith in Yeshua. And many times in the Christian church, we have a misunderstanding of Judaism, and we believe that there's no requirement of faith sometimes in Judaism, or that fulfilling the Torah, it's a mechanical checklist that you have to go through. And like everything else in life, right, it depends on how you do it, right? I mean, you can do things just like that, just like you're checking a list. But you can also perform the mitzvah with the intention of your heart of pleasing God, right, of being obedient to the covenant. So I think at the end of the day, it boils down as well to your heart and what you're doing and what intention you're putting in completing whatever you do, even prayer, right? If you do a prayer, if you do like a structured liturgical prayer like we do here every week, you can just go through the motions when you're reading it, or you can put your heart into what you're doing, right? So there's a difference. And if you're doing a free will prayer, let's say, a prayer that is inspired somehow, it can be the same, right? You can just pronounce words without much heart on them, or you can really pour your heart into what you're doing. And then I'm reminded of that verse that says that the Lord is seeking for worshipers in truth and spirit. And such worshipers, he wants them to worship him, right? So at the end of the day, it's your heart and the faith that you have in God that will make the difference.
And as she's coming, I just want to kind of key off that a little bit, that everything that we do, religion is based on intention. It's what is our intention behind what are we doing here, right? Like everything that we do, just anyway, is what is our intention behind this? Not that the action doesn't matter, but if I'm just going to say what you said, but basically it's, if we don't have the right heart behind it, if our heart isn't in it, God says, I don't want your sacrifices. I don't want this. I don't want anything, right? Like, what are you doing? It's always been about that, right? It's always been about the heart, and then these other things come out. Okay.
So I don't know if I should go back to if I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you, but when I look at that, I don't really see that God's saying he's promising them curses, because honestly, I know that it's a spiritual battle, and that because of the spiritual nature, more than because of who the Jews are, but it's more of a spiritual battle in the bottom line of everything. But life brings good and bad to everybody. And I see this more as a promise of, I will bless you, but not only will I bless you, but when those things happen and you are cursed, I will be with you. And I see it more of a promise of him fighting their battles, no matter if it's for the good or even for the bad. He still will be there fighting their battles for them, and he will be the one who defends them.
I think it's poignant to point out that what kingdom has come against the Jews that is still in existence, still in operation? I said, how you treat the Jews determines generally how long your kingdom is going to be around. Like at a larger level, like there's none that persisted after turning on the Jews, right? And so, it's I was going to say it's going down. Technically, it exists, but the sun has definitely set on the English kingdom, on the British kingdom. Okay.
Just a very, very quick point. Basic, everything that everybody said, just kind of putting it together. We were told right in the beginning of the Torah about basic human nature, right? Because Cain kills Abel. And he says, but, Hebel and his offering, but he did not accept Cain and his offering. Cain was very angry and fell on his face. But Adonai said to Cain, why are you angry? Why are you downcast? If you're doing what is good, shouldn't you hold your head high? And if you don't do what is good, sin is crouching at your door. It wants you, but you can rule over it. And that's your point about intention, about all these other things. Basic human nature is always going to be, if Israel is going to be persecuted, just like every other person, like Julie said, it's always a battle. But sin is crouching at your door, but you can overcome it. And that's our mission.
All right. Okay. Karen in the back. This will be our last.
Thank you. This is in regard to the chapter 15. After the sun had set, there's a thick darkness. Years ago, I heard like a really neat commentary on this, where the smoking fire pot kind of goes between the animals and Abraham's asleep. That the ancient covenants, both parties would walk through the animals, and kind of be stating like what part of the covenant they each would keep. And the commentary was that, Yahweh was walking alone while Abraham was asleep. Like he made the covenant and he will keep it. Like this is a prefiguring of Yeshua, who did all the work, basically. Like Abraham trusted him, but God will keep the covenant.
Yeah. So so God is saying, I'm doing this myself, right? I've sworn by myself, and He was the only one that walked through. The word in Hebrew for the smoking fire pot wasn't just a fire pot, but it was actually a bread oven. And so the idea is that there's some conjecture, some thought that this could have been like a reference or maybe an incarnation of Yeshua, like of the bread of life, keeping this covenant as well, making this covenant with Avram. Yeah, that's good. All right, man. I feel like we covered a lot. I'm like, okay,
there's
good
still so
job.
much
Like we
more.
went through oh man, there was just anyway. Man, there's some really awesome stuff about Hagar and Sarai, and anyway, Hagar always gets a bad rap, and I think sometimes it's rightfully so. Sometimes, but I think that she. Oh man, okay. I'm not going to talk about it right now. You can ask me later. This is like the cliffhanger to keep you interested, I guess. Yeah, but yes, and then Sarai going from mockery, right? Sarai to princess to Sarah. Anyway, okay. Hallelujah.